as well. So I guess, Scott, you want to kind of give a little introduction about yourself and the Orbital team?
If anybody forgets the name, it kind of, the guy who came up with it, I'll talk about this in a second. Orbiter8 sounds like obliterate. All right. So this is the first time that I've talked about this project to the public, and I feel like it's really challenging to try to talk about any blockchain project to people. So I just wanted to thank everybody for an opportunity to talk about this and practice describing this game to folks. I am Scott Dudley. A lot of people call me Coda. I go by Coda quite a bit. I am doing the game design and the programming for Orbiter8. I am a software engineer by trade. I have a lot of experience in gaming and web, but I'm here to tell you about the game, not me, so I'm not going to go too far into that. Walter Kostanak is the designer who's helping me with the game. He's responsible for the actual name. He's responsible for the look of the game. He's helping me design something that's aesthetically appealing. So I'm going to read off this slide. I know it's faux pas to read a slide to people, but this is the entire story condensed to one slide, so I'm going to try to be dramatic about it. All right, here we go. It is the year 2140, just a little more than a century after humans began off-world colonization, and civilization has spread to encompass the whole of the solar system, using orbital assist vehicles commonly known as orbiters. An innovative new ship, the Orbiter8, is the first vehicle capable of interstellar travel, unlocking the entire galaxy. Take command of your Orbiter8 today, explore, trade, battle, and build your empire in blockchain space. Liberta Galactica. So Liberta Galactica is it's my hashtag. It's the thing that I'm kind of throwing out there that's a little bit unique. It's just Latin for liberate the galaxy. I think it's a great capitalistic message for going out into the galaxy and just conquering the whole damn thing. All right, so quick thing about my path to developing this game. I was a Bitcoin enthusiast. I still am. Bitcoin is the bomb. Love it. Then I learned about Ethereum, and I was like, okay, this is kind of cool, but I'm confused. Then I discovered CryptoKitties, and I was like, holy crap, I get it. Crypto collectibles, this is pretty neat. Then I did this Crypto Zombies tutorial. Has anybody here heard of Crypto Zombies? It's such a good tutorial to learn how to write stuff for the blockchain. So I learned Solidity there, and when I was going through this whole process, this old game called Trade Wars 2002, has anybody heard of this? Yes!
Because of you.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Josh. Trade Wars 2002 is an old bulletin board game, and I'll get into details as to why it was such an inspiration in a moment, but Orbiter8 is the culmination of that gameplay applied to the concepts and the constrictions of the blockchain. All right, so there are 4 demos that I'm building to get to a beta state. By that time, the game will feel like a game of some kind. But the first thing that I'm doing, the first demo, is dynamic sector generation, which I'll explain in just a little bit. But I actually finished this demo. I started it June of last year, and I released it in January to the Rothstein Test Network. Put the client out. There's the first smart contract I've ever published to the public, the only one. I'm really proud, really excited. Demo 2 was actually going to start populating some stuff in space, but that's still in production. I haven't done it yet, so we'll talk about that later. This is all about Demo 1. So what is dynamic sector creation? So Trade Wars was a game created in the 80s for bulletin board systems. And these bulletin board systems have multi-user experiences, lots of people dialing up into one computer. This computer was old, the 80s, it's talking about 286 or older, and it was a multi-user world experience that a lot of people really were very addicted to. It was a fabulous game. They used a directed graph to represent all of space, right? Does anybody here not know what a directed graph is? Ring a bell? All right, we're about to dive in and get into that explanation in just a second. The directed graph is just graph nodes that represent outer space, where a node is effectively is a solar system, it's a star. So we're moving through space, and moving from one node to another node on the graph is how the system understands moving through space. On Trade Wars, all of space, the entire universe, was generated before anybody plays the game, right? The bullet board system administrator would run a command called a Big Bang, and he would write out this great big data structured disk that would be the universe that everybody would play in later on. That works great for that particular dynamic. And there's a gameplay component that comes from a directed graph, and I'm going to explain this right now. Oh yeah, it works. Okay. This is a directed graph, and a directed graph means that sometimes you have two ways, and sometimes you have one way. This is one direction, that is the direction. This whole thing is a graph. So you consider each of these to be a solar system, and if you want to move from this solar system to here, you go along this edge. You'll notice that C is a dead end to H. And this can occur where you have multiple hops into a dead end. So if you find a dead end in space, it's a really good place to put your base, because if you're just cruising through open space, you're not likely to curve into that dead end. So there's a gameplay component advantage there, right? Also, because these are directed, if you're in sector A and you just came from sector G, but you really got to get back there, well, you can't just fly straight back. You've got to go to sector D, then over to H, then B, then back to G. It's a longer path. So these are the gameplay advantages of a directed graph. So why is this cool? Why does this play into this game? Well, part of what's important here is the natural way that Ethereum works. And there was a question earlier about, well, who pays for those transactions? In Orbiter8, the game player pays for every transaction that they make, right? It's a play per turn style game. And you compare that to like a World of Warcraft. You pay a subscription fee, and then you play as much as you can to try to get your money out of the subscription fee or whatever. And they have to have enough robust server architecture to handle it, and hopefully they find that magical balance between you feel like you've got a good deal and they're not losing their ass on the server infrastructure. Ethereum sort of short circuits all of that, right? You're paying for that transaction. That money is going to the miners who support the network so that you can record that data to the blockchain. Everything you write to the blockchain in Ethereum costs some money. So moving from sector to sector costs a little bit of money. So if I were to create this giant universe in Big Bang style, like Trade Wars did, and write the whole thing to the blockchain, it would be crazy expensive. This is the innovative thing that I've done so far in this game, is we are dynamically generating the universe as gamers push out to the frontier and visit those sectors. In the first example, the gamer is in Sector 1, and there exist 3 adjacent sectors. As the gamer moves into Sector 2, adjacent sectors are generated. Nobody has ever visited Sector 2 before, but the first time somebody does, these sectors are generated. The gamer has to pay that fee. They have to pay the money to write that additional information to the blockchain and generate whatever tokens or whatnot. But the advantage is they're the first ones there. They get to claim all the property there. They get to own all the objects in that space. And then you can see in the third example here, the gamer moves 1 more, generates 3 more. But when the gamer moves back to a previously visited space, there's no new sectors adjacent to it to create, so that costs a lot less. Therefore, as you move around an existing space, it's pretty cheap. But if you move out to the edge of space and explore, now you're paying just a little bit more to play. Okay, so you guys ready to actually see it?
Yeah.
All right, maybe we can do this. So far, so good. It's pretty buggy, you know, it's an indie game, and sometimes things don't go as smooth as I'd like. But if this is all online right now, so if anybody would actually like to see it for yourself, you can just visit Orbiter8.com/DIST. Come on. Okay, so I'm using MetaMask as my wallet, using Web3 hooks. The entire game is written in JavaScript. It's an independent client. It recognized me as Commander Bravish because I created this account with the Brave browser and I thought it was funny. You can see that there are 17 players who have ever entered the system. So far, since I launched the contract, 17 different accounts have actually created avatars within the game world. And there are 104 solar systems. We've explored enough to create 104 nodes on that graph together. So let's enter the game. Welcome to Alpha Sector. Up here we have Minerva. And Minerva is telling us we're in Alpha Sector. And these are the neighbors. Look at how the mouse bounces. That's weird. Anyway, we can explore the solar system here. Let's go to the sun, which is Sol. Flip over to Earth. I'm going to have trouble clicking on things. Let's go over here and use this cheat sheet. All right. Here you see the ship called Polar Bear, Orbiter8. And Polar Bear is orbiting around Tycho Station, which is orbiting around Earth. So if you were playing this game, most of the trading and fighting and battling that you'd be doing would be happening in this sector. You don't need to move from planet to planet. You can interact with each planet, but you can only interact with the things that are in the sector currently. So now we want to move to another sector, and I've bound that to a radial menu on the sun. Click it again, here's our menu, and these are the neighboring sectors that we can fly to. So let's fly to Sector 3. So it's on my other screen. I got to drag it over here. How many folks here have used MetaMask before? Okay, you guys are familiar. Excellent. So here is MetaMask. And here's my transaction. It cost 0.00004 Ethereum to move to another sector. So it's not expensive. Now this is the Robson test network. And I honestly don't know what this is going to cost in real life. I have no idea. So we'll confirm. Okay, the contract is out. It's gone into the ether. Now, one of the bugs that I currently have is about 1 out of 5 times that I move to another sector, my callback isn't noticing that the contract is finished. So sometimes it finishes and it doesn't jump, and it looks like it finished really fast. So I put this little button over here just to do a quick refresh. There we go. And we're in Sector 3. So on the blockchain, our character has been moved from Sector 1 to Sector 3. Sort of like a CryptoKitty. This sector has its own DNA, and that DNA is the source that's used to generate what planets, what moons, what other objects will be generated in each sector as they are created on the blockchain. And yeah, that's basically the demo. I'm going to fly back to Sector 1. I've got a little bit more in my slide deck to do, but is there anything else anybody else wanted to see in this before I flip over? Okay, now, here I go.
What's the game economy?
So that's a future demo, right? And I can speak to quite a bit what's in the game economy, but the demo doesn't have any of it yet. Effectively, you'll do something like go back to Earth, get as many citizens as you can put under your cargo holds you want to go colonize, fly to your planet, land on the planet, release the citizens. Those citizens get to work, they build equipment. You get all the equipment you can put in your cargo holds. You fly up to a spaceport. You sell the equipment, you get profit. You get enough profit, you buy more cargo holds for your ship. That's the basic economics. All right. And then I had a few other closing notes about the game I wanted to share. First is that it's fully distributed, which I think is an interesting contrast to the game that we just looked at. There's no centralized server involved whatsoever. You have a JavaScript client that runs in your browser, and you have the Ethereum blockchain. All of the gameplay mechanics happen on the Ethereum blockchain. The client is there to give you a visual representation of what's happening, so you could effectively replace the entire client later with a different one, and the game on the blockchain remains basically the same. I didn't add in any extra fees. There's nothing going on in the economy where you have to pay me something to get something. I'm not pre-selling any assets. I'm not generating any assets to sell. Everything that you will effectively be spending is whatever it costs to use the Ethereum network to do the thing. I'm going to tokenize everything in the game because that's easy to do on Ethereum, right? Tokenize the ships, tokenize the planets, tokenize anything that you can own, and the plan is that these tokenized goods will be able to be exchanged outside of the game world. So I have this great planet that's producing all these resources, but I just want to sell it to my buddy for some Ethereum or whatever. Those are the things you can do on the blockchain, right? And then if your ship is ever in battle and it loses, like if you have like an on-chain card game and you lose a game, there's not much penalty. But if you lose a battle in Orbiter8, your ship's blown up, it's gone, that token doesn't exist anymore. It's part of what's going to help provide value for the ones that do last. And if your ship has been through a lot of battles, you're going to be able to look at the blockchain. You're going to be able to see every battle that it's ever been in, every trade that it's ever made. So these goods, they're going to kind of start to develop a reputation of their own over time. So the last bullet point, and the one that I'm the most excited about, that has got me really passionate about making this game, is that it's going to be massively multiplayer in a way that I am unfamiliar with. Everybody's on the same instance of Ethereum. It's the one virtual machine. So everybody in the world who plays this game will be playing in the same realm. It's sort of like CryptoKitties, but if you want to breed your CryptoKitty with somebody, you have to find them and you have to put your kitties together, and it's just 2 people engaging. But I've created a universe that's spatial, and as you move around in this universe, you're going to encounter other people, and you could potentially encounter any other user on the blockchain. And sure, maybe when you scan Sector 1, you can only load 200 people on your screen or pull 200 people from the network. But if there are thousands and thousands of them, they are indeed there with you in Sector 1 in the universe. So I'm really stoked to see how that part of it plays out. That's the last bullet point I've got. My last slide. Questions? Yes?
This isn't as much of a question, but more the, so full disclosure, Dakota and I are friends. I'm wearing the shirt. I'm an unofficial fanboy.
Yay!
But he and I met recently about this, and we kind of geeked on it, and there's some things I thought were super unique about this. One is that the universe the discovery of itself by
Correct.
rewarding each player with new assets as they pay these higher fees to travel further out, which I thought was a really cool concept of the universe.
Yes.
building itself.
As you find the frontier line and you push out into the universe and you're spending that extra money, you're not only laying out the groundwork for the universe for other people to play, but there's value. You get the first stuff that appears in that universe. It's you're building your empire, collecting your goods. Absolutely. Was there a second one?
I mean, it kind of piggybacks on that. It's just
Yeah.
I like it that neither the developer nor the server actually knows what's going to be revealed.
Correct.
So there's this hidden knowledge that nobody has, which is usually in gameplay, a hidden knowledge mechanic. One player has an advantage, or the system has an advantage.
Yes.
But in this case, there is no advantage
Right.
anywhere because no one has the knowledge. So
Yep. Once the game is launched, there will be some randomized components of how things are generated. It'll be based off DNA. I will not hold any master tools to generate or manipulate anything. The game will take off. And I'm thinking about open sourcing all of the source code as well. That really, part of what I'm inspired about is creating a game that sits close to Ethereum, that gives people an experience where they'll better understand Ethereum and feel what it's like to use an Ethereum dApp while also having fun at the same time, having an experience that's addictive and engaging. I feel like there's a sweet spot to be met there, and I don't want to clutter the idea with pre-sales and trying to spin up my own tokens that have some value on the side in some obscure way. Any other questions? No questions. Oh my goodness. Yeah, Josh.
So if you're not selling anything at all, is this just completely self-funded? How are you?
Yes, this is a game that I'm building entirely on the side. This is being done in my spare time. It took me about 6 months to 9 months to build the first demo. Probably would have taken 1 to 2 months if this had been my full-time gig. There is a hope for profitability in the end. It is not by exploiting anything in the game, but I will be the first player. I will own the first, I'll own Alpha Sector. I'll own the objects in Alpha Sector. I'll own the first ships. So if this game does get traction and does become popular, I'm going to have a pile of valuable assets as a result. And that is the one reward that I was keeping for myself. Yeah.
So from what I'm understanding, what you're really looking to get out of this and where the real value is, it's not necessarily the game itself or the gameplay actions in the game, but it's the underlying system, and almost in a way it's an educational module for how to use Ethereum and demonstrating its use case.
Right, absolutely. If it's not fun, that doesn't work, right? Like, it has to be fun or people won't play it. But at the same time, part of the inspiration is let's stay close to Ethereum, let's feel out this new thing, this new way of monetizing a game. Instead of having a subscription, people are paying per turn. A new way of playing with virtual economies where goods are tokenized. Let's take all of the fun pieces and try to stuff them into a relatively simple concept that is executable, something that can be achieved and released, and that it's straightforward enough that people can understand it, right? Like it's not this overly complex. You have to be an advanced competitive Twitch gamer to be able to dive in and play it. It's just something you can pull up on your phone, play on the bus, a few turns a day, spend some of your extra Ethereum, and hopefully have a good time.
I have one question, maybe I missed it. So when you make a new universe, that up there showed, it takes so many Ethereum coins to make the universe.
Yeah.
But you said that once you get to the new universe, you're giving yourself some tokens, correct?
So to speak.
So to speak.
Right. So this sector here, this solar system, this star, the user was here. Nobody has ever been here before because these don't exist yet.
Right.
So you're the first person in this space. So anything that's in that space, say planets or moons or whatnot, that will be valuable resources in the game, you're the first one there, so you can just claim ownership to them. You can start building on them. You can start using them as resources to produce the in-game currency, and basically have a game advantage as a reward for having spent the extra Ethereum to build that node.
What will prevent people from writing bots to just...
I would love that.
Okay.
Oh man, if people started trying to write bots to run on this, that would be amazing. In fact, I don't understand Ethereum well enough to execute on this yet, but I love the idea of a core game world being extensible in such a way that people would write bots in Solidity to interact with those games and try to give themselves the advantages that way. I would love it if it was extensible when people started hacking at it from that direction. The hope is that the core gameplay is simple enough that it's hard to really exploit the system, but maybe people will. It's in kind of a learning experience in that regard.
Do you plan to roll out on some side chains?
Not initially. I have thought about it. People have encouraged me. People have also encouraged me to look at other chains that have like staking networks and don't have any cost per transactions.
Right.
And first of all, you change the model too much, now you got to change the gameplay mechanics to suit it. And I've tailored these gameplay mechanics kind of for the pace of the Ethereum network. So that would sort of be a different game, and I'm incentivized to finish this one before I go diving off into some other concepts. And at the same time too, like what side chains are going to really establish themselves and which ones are not? Do I want to use Loom, or do I want to consider Engine? And then I don't know where these things are going right now. So for today, if I build on Ethereum, I'm pretty sure Ethereum is going to be there, in times to come. And chances are the time for transactions is only going to decrease as Ethereum continues to evolve. So maybe I'll consider side chains for the next project or port this later, but the goal right now is to try to finish this and get it released as is. Is that it? Yes. Oh, here and here.
Is there any theoretical limit to the size of the universe? Or
There is a limit. It is in screenshot, I think. No, it's in the DNA. It's in the DNA.
It's not ever expanding.
Yes. This number here, I think that's 32 digits integer. That is the size integer that is used for the number of sectors. So if you fill that all with 9s, that's how many sectors there could be. And after that, the thing's probably going to crash. But it'll feel near infinite until we somehow hit that number. And yeah, then I don't know what happens.
Do you have a random number generator on chain?
No, so that's trouble, right? Like it's hard to come up with a random number. So I'm using a combination of the DNA, what do you call that? The number on the blockchain that's encoded for the previous one. It's got a name, nonce. But the trick with a nonce is everything that goes into the chain in that block has the same nonce. So I'm just taking several different numbers that are somewhat unique and using those for my randomization. If somebody figures it out and finds a way to manipulate it, good on them.
You might want to check out one of our audits, public audits that we audited a few games like Dragonarium and Orbiter, and that's like they have some sort of similarities to your game.
Did you reverse their randomization?
Yeah, we published our report, so you can check
I'm
it out.
super interested in that. Yeah.
And with the Orbiter, that's why I asked regarding the bots, because the bots kill the game. They just basically people were playing, but there were some incentives in the game, and the bots just basically stole the money from the real players.
Well, I'm gonna try to avoid that fate as best I can. Yeah, I definitely want to. How do I find that research?
I will give you the link to our website.
Excellent. Did you already ask?
Oh, I was actually going to ask a similar question to Josh, which was what the constraints are for the game, both in terms of like the size of the universe, but also even just the economics. And could those constraints be dynamic and like outsourced to a DAO or something like that if players are playing the game to sort of change what it looks like?
That would be great. I feel like that's above and beyond what I have conceived so far. I like that idea. Being able to manipulate, and tell me if I understand correctly, the DAO could manipulate the dynamics of the economy and make adjustments to make it suit their needs.
Sure.
Yeah, that's definitely a step above where I'm at right now.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Anybody else? I wanted to ask one other question I forgot to earlier. I'm curious, how many people here have a crypto key? Okay, about half-ish. And did you guys get that to learn? Okay, yeah. If you got that the two choices are gonna be to learn or because you think it's gonna have value someday. So those who got it more because they wanted to learn, raise your hands. And those who got it because they think it might someday be valuable, raise your hands. More for learning. That's interesting. All right. All right, that's all I got.
Awesome, thanks.
Thank you, everybody.
So as we transition to next with Chris at Horde Exchange, we're going to get into actually the gaming side to the actual digital